Hey guys, today it is Saturday, April 25th, 2020, and for this video today what I will be doing is I will be sharing my thoughts on the XFL now that it has not only been shut down in 2020 due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, which it was shut down weeks ago for the record, but now that it has also laid off employees and has actually filed for bankruptcy, and I believe it has also been put up for sale, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But with the XFL, this time around, see, the XFL was first attempted in 2001. And Vince McMahon brought the league in 2001, and it tried to incorporate professional wrestling into football, as far as I know. But unfortunately for them, the league was a colossal failure, and it was done after one season. Now, fast forward almost 20 years later now to 2020, and let's go back to 2018. So in 2018, Vince McMahon, who's been the longtime head of the WWE, I almost said WWF. I know it's been WWE for a long, long time now. I believe close to 20 years, if not more. But Vince McMahon, 19 years later, relaunched an XFL and brought in the XFL this year for 2020, basically as what I would call the XFL 2.0. So this time, instead of being professional wrestling based or inspired, this XFL was more about creating a simpler play or a simpler game than the NFL. And this was more about football rather than, say, football and wrestling combined in some way, shape, or form. So this new XFL that came out this year, and which Vince McMahon got the early work for the league to be brought back in 2020, 2 years ago in 2018. But basically, in 2018 and 2019, the past 2 years, basically, Vince McMahon has been slowly getting things ready to relaunch and do a new XFL 2.0. Now, this here that you're looking at is the logo that they had, but as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, this league was shut down, like all of the other professional sports leagues here in North America, and basically most, if not all, around the world, as far as I know. But what ended up happening is that shortly after the league suspended operations, employees were laid off, and the XFL filed for bankruptcy. So, unfortunately, the XFL did not work out, and unlike the first attempt in 2001, this one did not even finish an entire season. So, I gotta be honest, when the XFL first started up back in February, just after the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl over the 49ers, I decided to give this league a chance. I thought it was worth watching and seeing if maybe it was worth the time. And to be quite honest with you viewers out there, I watched it, and within about a couple of weeks of watching it, I actually really found that I was enjoying what I was watching. There was something about the XFL that I really enjoyed. And it's hard for me to really put it into specific words. But I found that overall the XFL was a well-done league this time around. Now, to be honest, in 2001, I was just a kid. And obviously, I never followed the XFL back in 2001, eh? But here in 2020, I gave the XFL a chance, and I honestly thought that it was worth the time, and I really was starting to enjoy the league as a whole. Now, there were some things that were weird, like where players would stand during kickoffs and line up. Also, how you could do a 1-point conversion, a 2-point conversion, or a 3-point conversion. instead of a 1-point kick or just a 2-point convert, your 1-point converts were actually done the same way as 2-point converts, except you were closer to the end zone. So some things like that were a bit weird. And, I still think that for the 1-point converts, they should do kicking like every other football league out there does. But it gave the XFL their own unique style. Now, do I agree with the 1-point converts having to be ran into the end zone? No, I don't. But the idea of a 3-point convert I thought was rather interesting, to say the least. Now, as a football fan myself, do I think that other leagues should look at a 3-point convert? Personally, I don't. Now, that was something I found rather odd, but I think what the XFL was trying to do with that was they were trying to create the ability for teams to produce more high-scoring games. But overall, I feel that the game that the XFL, and of course Vince McMahon and everyone else in the XFL put together for the launch in 2020, I actually felt that the XFL was... Sorry, guys, I'm just repositioning myself here. To be quite honest, I feel that what they did this year was actually really good. I actually really enjoyed watching the XFL. Now, with the XFL, obviously last year in 2019, there was another springtime football league that tried to launch, and that was the Alliance of American Football, where basically I never saw it on TV when I was able to actually watch it on TV. And not only that, but the AAF did not even survive a full season. And unlike the XFL, it wasn't because of a pandemic. It was because of the fact that it just was a disaster. I mean, games were seldom televised, if they even were. And they didn't have the sponsorship and TV deals that the XFL did get. I mean, the XFL had some pretty significant sponsors, and they had TV deals. Those were things that the AAF did not have. And by getting those games televised, you were actually able to sit down on a Sunday and watch the XFL. Games were available to watch on TV. In fact, one thing that I really liked that the XFL did here in 2020 was that they actually had games live streamed on YouTube. And that is something you do not see from leagues such as the NFL, Major League Baseball, or the National Hockey League, Major League Soccer, or the NBA. At least as far as I know. Now, I have never seen live streams from any of the big professional sports leagues here in North America before. And I'm not saying that the XFL is the same as the NFL when I say that. That my bad. But what I meant to say is that, the major professional sports leagues, the Big Five I call it, because I do feel that Major League Soccer is a big league as well. Though I understand some people would disagree with me on that. And if you do, I respect your opinion. But if you look at any of those leagues, they have TV packages, usually, that you need to buy if you want to watch more games. I have yet to see any of them live stream games on YouTube. So seeing the XFL live streaming games on YouTube, I've got to admit, I thought that was really cool. And when there were times that I was at work, I was actually at times watching the XFL. And that was actually something I wasn't used to, and I thought that was actually really quite cool. Now, in terms of the XFL, I also felt like it really did a good job of engaging with the fans. I mean, the pre-play or the post right after a play interview with players was interesting. It was an interesting aspect of the XFL that I've never seen before. In the NFL, you would never see anything like it. You wouldn't get to listen to the teams calling out their play routes and all that. Now, Do I think that's a good idea for, say, the NFL to do, where fans can listen on TV to what their play calls are and what they're telling their players to do on the field? No. But I gotta confess, seeing that in the XFL was interesting. But what I really liked was getting to see the officials reviewing plays. I thought that was really interesting. And getting an inside look at that, I just thought that was actually really quite cool. And you actually, you got to listen to the referees, the game officials, and the upstairs play reviewers, or the officiating heads, all discussing the plays together. And that's something you never see. So that was really quite interesting. And I actually feel like the XFL did a really good job overall of engaging with the fans. And it was a rather interesting setup, at least in my opinion. And really, I think it's a shame that this league did not get to survive. But anyway, the thing is I must say, I really do feel that they did a good job of what they put together for 2020. And I gotta be honest, I'm not gonna go into crazy long discussion on this. But the thing is that, overall, I feel the XFL was really quite fun to watch. I really enjoyed it. And, as somebody who traditionally focuses on discussing uniforms, there were some teams like the Seattle Dragons that had uniforms that I honestly did not care for. But then you had some teams like the New York Guardians, who in my opinion had some really good uniforms. And I especially loved their gray away uniforms. And as for the St. Louis Battlehawks, these two teams here, in my personal opinion, have uniforms that are better than multiple NFL teams right now. And, seeing a new upstart league bringing out some new uniform designs that actually looked better than some of the NFL teams' current designs, in my opinion, was actually really cool. Now, you had some like the Tampa Bay Vipers, who, in my opinion, their uniforms are a little bit too much for me. I mean, to me, I feel they should have either went full-blown neon green or not gone with it at all. Now, neon green, Kelly green, and gold, that's a color scheme that I thought was a little bit much. But you look at another team like, the DC Defenders. They had a really nice logo. They had really, really good uniforms for a modern style uniform. I feel the DC Defenders did really good. Now, when you look at I'll show you the 8 different teams, but overall, and their coaches, then I can look at each team and discuss one by one. But the DC Defenders, I really liked their logo and uniforms. They were really, really good. The only thing I would have done a little differently is I would have had them wearing the monochrome red, basically not at all. That's a uniform combo I don't like, is when teams wear monochrome red. And then the Vipers were a little bit too Oregon Ducks for me. The New York Guardians were excellent. And I especially loved the idea of a full-time light gray away uniform. It was a traditional design on the shoulders, and I really enjoyed their uniforms. And I even feel that their logo wasn't too bad either. And same with the DC Defenders. The red and white was actually really good too. Now, the Seattle Dragons, I didn't care for their uniforms much. But the St. Louis Battlehawks, I actually really liked their uniforms. And their helmet design was actually really quite cool too. Now, as for the Wildcats, I didn't really care for their uniforms much at all. And for the Houston Roughnecks, it was interesting with the style of uniform they went with, and the fact they also went with a light gray away uniform. But I didn't really care for their uniforms too much. The red jersey was all right, though. but the gray one I didn't care for. And the Dallas Renegades, I didn't care for the light blue helmets and the light blue shoulder yokes, to be quite honest. But overall, I mean, when I look at these teams in the XFL, the 8 of them, to me, the DC Defenders, the New York Guardians, and the St. Louis Battlehawks are 3 teams that, in my opinion, have uniforms that are better than some NFL teams right now. And they were all way better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' old uniforms that they've thankfully gotten rid of now. And by the way, I think the Buccaneers' updated uniforms are a major upgrade. And I think it is so nice that they listen to the fans and they finally fixed their uniforms, which, for the record, I do have a video coming up on that hopefully soon, But with the XFL, though, they had some uniforms that were actually pretty good. And I love the Guardians uniforms. The Battlehawks uniforms were very nice overall. And I thought the DC Defenders uniforms were very pleasant. And I especially liked their logo. I'm not going to lie. But also overall, though, I mean, it was nice to see a springtime football league come into fruition, even if it was only, sadly, for a short time. But, you know, there were some uniform matchups like this one here that I thought were actually very, very, very pretty. And look at the Battlehawks helmet, too. How they incorporated the sword and the pair of wings on the helmet. I thought it was actually a very well done uniform and logo and helmet overall for a modern design, too. So I feel that the XFL overall did a really good job. And I really do think it's a shame that they were shut down as quickly as they were. And even as I've even seen videos about the XFL, and you know what? I gotta say, it wasn't all their fault. And I actually felt that there was one really good video that was recently made by the YouTuber known as Urinating Tree about the XFL post-mortem. And, you know, I actually felt that the XFL was very exciting to watch. I was really starting to enjoy it. And, you know, even though the Alliance of American Football failed colossally, or royally, it was a colossal failure, where they didn't even get to finish one full season because of financial issues. But with the XFL, they shut down as a result of what ended up happening, where they had to shut down because of COVID-19. Now, if COVID-19 was not affecting us here in 2020 as it is as of this video, I actually feel that the XFL quite possibly would have continued to see their fan base grow. I mean, coincidentally, the St. Louis Battlehawks, they were the only city that got an XFL franchise in 2020 that doesn't currently have an NFL team playing in that city. So with the Battlehawks in St. Louis, and knowing that the city of St. Louis lost the Rams 5 years ago, they had some very, very good fan support. And I was really quite surprised at how the city of St. Louis and their football fans really seem to have embraced the St. Louis Battlehawks. Also, I heard that the city of Seattle was doing rather well with their attendance as well. And, you know, I actually feel that if this league was able to continue on without COVID-19 ruining the season and shutting everybody down and causing the league to have to file for bankruptcy, or being a cause of it, rather. I think it's the main cause, but anyway. With the XFL, I think if this league was able to continue finishing out the first season, I think this league would have been a league that had that would have had a chance to survive. And I think this time Vince McMahon and the XFL got it right. They focused on just being a football league, rather than a league trying to incorporate professional wrestling in some capacity. I think they did a really good job. The league was ran without franchise owners. It was a different setup, but it was really interesting. And I thought it was a really good game overall. And seeing the fan support in St. Louis, I must say that was really quite nice to see. And you want to know something? I really do hope that the XFL does get to come back, and hopefully within the next 2 years. That's what I'm hoping for. But will it happen? Time will tell. Now, something else I want to say too. If this league does come back, you know what I would really like to see is I would really like to see the LA Wildcats move to San Diego and have them play in Calcom Stadium where the Chargers used to play until they were relocated to Los Angeles. Now, in my opinion, if the Wildcats got relocated there, I actually think it's very, very possible that the Wildcats would have a very, very warm reception from the fans in San Diego. Another city that I think could do well that the AAF did try to put a team in was Orlando. Now, do I think that both Dallas and Houston would have done okay with the XFL? I'm not fully sure. I think that both cities probably were doing okay with fan support. I mean, obviously the league was brand new. Some fan bases like St. Louis were more excited about it than others, I'm sure, from what I can remember. Like, I know, for example, St. Louis had way better fan attendance than, say, the Tampa Bay Vipers, for example. But I think that if there was, say they moved the Vipers to Orlando, Florida, instead of Tampa Bay, I think that there would have been a chance there for that franchise to do well with fan support. Because obviously Orlando doesn't have professional football in terms of the NFL. Tampa Bay has the Buccaneers. So if Orlando had their own team and the Vipers were moved to Orlando, I actually think there's a chance that they could do really well with fan support if, of course, this league ever comes back, and that's a big if. Another city that I think would do really good is obviously San Diego, as I mentioned earlier, but another one I think would be San Antonio, Texas. From what I've heard, that has been a city that has been discussed as a possible place for an NFL franchise in the future. Now, will that ever happen? You never know. But I know that Texas is football crazy, which is a good thing. I mean, if you look at the state of Texas, I mean, it's incredible the amount of support that the game of football has. It's basically treated, as far as I know, like a religion in Texas, like us Canadians treat the sport of hockey. And, you know, I think that in the future, I mean, you could even potentially move one of the two Texas-based teams in the XFL to San Antonio. Now, as for which one, I think that would obviously be based on fan support. But I think that if there was an XFL team in San Antonio, another in San Diego, and the Vipers were sent down to Orlando, moved to Orlando, I actually do think it's possible that those cities would do very, very well. And I do believe that the Wildcats would do way better in San Diego than in Los Angeles, competing with so many other professional sports teams in Los Angeles, where San Diego not only doesn't have a professional football team anymore, but they would basically be the only main tenant in terms of football in San Diego. So I think they would do really, really well compared to being in Los Angeles. But anyways, I must say, I really did enjoy the XFL in its short-lived run in 2020. And obviously, what's going to probably end up happening is that Vince McMahon, once this pandemic is over, obviously, you know, the main league or main company for him is obviously the WWE. And that's where they need to focus the most on and getting that back up to speed once this pandemic is over. So hopefully if they can get the WWE back up and running like it was before COVID-19 and before the coronavirus struck us all, or struck down society, I mean, you know, I'm hoping that at some point again, the XFL could be revived. I think they actually had something really, really great in the making. And I think that if the league was just able to stay alive for another 2 or 3 more years, that I think they could have really planted some long term roots in the game of football, but also in terms of its popularity. I think it would have grown. I think they had something really good here. And it was a different game than the NFL, obviously. But it was different. And it gave cities like, say, St. Louis that lost... Well, St. Louis was the only non-NFL-based city that they had. Well, only because they lost the Rams 5 years ago. But, you know, I think that they got off to... They would have had a good finish to the season if they were able to continue. And it's really unfortunate that the XFL had to shut down. I was really starting to enjoy it, and I just hope that at some point they will bring it back. But I do know that Vince McMahon is not a spring chicken anymore. He is in his mid-70s, and I could also appreciate him after a second attempt to bring back the XFL, or, a second attempt to try and make the XFL work, then maybe he looks back and says, you know what, I'm not going to bother with it anymore, which is especially unfortunate. But, you know, as far as I know, he had, for the XFL, Vince McMahon was able to get some major sponsors. He was able to get TV deals. And, you know, as far as I know, he was willing to contribute a lot of money towards trying to keep the XFL afloat just to get it going. And it's really, really unfortunate that it didn't work out this time. You know, he first put in about $100 million to fund Alpha Entertainment, the company that was created to run the XFL. But supposedly Vince McMahon was willing to invest as much as $500 million to get the league up and running. And unfortunately, odds are we're never really going to know if the XFL will ever fully succeed or not. But hopefully, once this coronavirus pandemic is over, I'm really hoping that fans will reach out and say, hey, we want this league to come back, because I think they had something good going. Obviously, it's a brand new league in 2020 compared to what it was in 2001. But I do believe that if this league was given a chance and was able to play out 2 or 3 seasons, I think it could be a long-term success story as far as I'm concerned. And really, to me, it's extremely unfortunate that the league had to shut down and that it ultimately went bankrupt. And they had to lay off all of their employees. That's unfortunate. But anyways, you guys, I thought I'd do this video today. I've really wanted to discuss the XFL for quite a considerable amount of time now. And it's really unfortunate that this league had to shut down. I just hope that in the future they will attempt to bring this back for a third time, because I think it would be a case of the third time's the charm. Because I think that the way they ran the XFL this time in 2020 compared to 2001, by the sounds of things, not only has this league clearly been better, but I personally really enjoyed what I was watching. And I just hope that at some point the XFL will come back, at least for a third try. I think they should. But anyways, I'd love to hear what other people feel about the XFL being shut down again and not working out. But anyways, guys, I will wrap up this video for today. And here's a final photo to share with the XFL. With 2 of the nicest looking teams in the league, the New York Guardians and the St. Louis Battlehawks. And was it ever nice to see the city of St. Louis embrace the Battlehawks? I thought that was really quite cool. Anyways, guys, on that note, folks, take care. And as usual, bye for now. And I hope all of you who have watched this video from start to finish have enjoyed this video. All right, guys, take care.